Methods of Psychological Approach to Issues. Narrated by Deadpool. Well, my little cock goblins, it seems old Uncle Deadpool gets to read you a story tonight. It's called The Psychological Notes of Dr. Arnon Sheeps, HM. Sounds Turkish to me. Anyways, this butt pirate didn't need these anymore after his accident, so I thought to myself, there are many opportunities that the unseen powers that be often offer such charismatic individuals like me, and it would be a crime against their good efforts to simply ignore this answer to my issues wrapped up in such a neat and easy escrow source donation. So I grifted it, and here is what he says. Psychological profiling of sociopathic criminal behavior, and or people named Deadpool. Just kidding. Anyways, 1. Identify the source of the issue. Many times I have seen cases where psychological problems are said to be the reason behind some people's actions, but I do not see their issues properly identified before they make that assumption. To understand the trauma and overwhelming issues of your past gives you insight into what kind of behaviors may occur during most criminalistic activity. Prior to crimes committed, there often will be some sort of behavior pattern that triggers the criminalistic mind into a state of survival instinct created by the mind to handle overwhelming issues. From reoccurring, these trigger patterns can be traced through associative traits that are attributed to both the crime and trauma. Though this is a more recently studied subject in criminal psychology, it is not a new subject for demonic forces and has been used by them for going on at least since before biblical times. They call it temptation. It is a tactic used to psychologically manipulate their targets into doing or becoming whatever it is that is needed to achieve the demon's goal. Angels usually do not interfere with this process and wait for the demon to discard them once they're through to help piece the person's mind and life back together. Though demons use more drastic and effective methods, the angels are more subtle and rebuild a person's self-confidence as they work by their subtle methods. This is just an example of this method's effectiveness and possible applications. Before this can begin, one must identify the weak points and strengths that the person possesses. This is usually accomplished through a basic outline of human emotional experiences and triggered effects known as the 7 deadly sins and virtues, or the principalities in some older Catholic texts. Each associated sin has counterproductive virtue that has a mirrored opposing reaction within the mind. For example, the aspects of love can be counteracted, overcome, and desires dismissed through acts and thoughts of hate, just as hate can be counteracted with similar aspects of love. Demons use the aspects of sin to accomplish their goals, where angels use the aspects of virtue to achieve their goals. Honestly, once you understand the full spectrum of both heaven and hell's approach and use of these subjects, you can easily see that this whole ensemble is nothing more than a warped version of its original intended purpose into a means of mass population control. When applied by a skilled sociopath, it is a subtle tool that can be used to break down the strong-willed individual and mold the weak-minded into whatever characteristic or personality you want, through mental conditioning. However, in the case of self-therapy, these methods can be properly used to help an individual change their own habitual living patterns, but must be done in a completely self-oriented endeavor. Any outside influences could lead to adverse effects that could easily become more harmful than helpful. Closing parenthesis, know yourself and apply your knowledge. Simply knowing one's own problems is only a portion of what is needed to overcome psychological trauma. You must also be able to apply what knowledge you have attained. Recognizing the problem is key, but applying the proper counteractive attributes is necessary to achieving success. This topic, however, cannot be generally summarized with a method of solution that can be applied to all situations, because each case and its details are different. So the right solution will also be different for each case. It is best to approach this phase of use of these methods with a trial and error kind of approach to gauge both short and long-term effects that it has on the person. For example, using a solution of finding another person to love when a relationship ends does not always achieve the success a person is looking for, and they find themselves experiencing what is called a rebound relationship. The trauma caused by the previous relationship still lingers in the person's mind, and they unintentionally often hold their new partner up to the expectations the person had of their previous partner, which ends up causing effects that often lead up to the ending of the new relationship, and the reasons of why they are called rebound relationships becomes obvious. 3. Take a pause to self-reflect. Oftentimes people become so excited with the idea of success that they tend to not pay attention to possible hazards occurring around them that are signs of unforeseen failure to their endeavors. This often happens to Christians, as they believe in abolishing the factor of sin and evil by purging it from their lifestyles and mind, thinking that if they don't think evil thoughts and refuse sinful desires, then evil just won't exist and fade away into nothingness. However, this is not the case, and all this does is cause them to become blind to their own mistakes by surrounding themselves in thoughts of righteousness. Unaware of the evils that lurk within the mind's potential, they fall victim to their own opulent behaviors, becoming hypocrites living in denial of themselves. The best approach to a solution applied is by following what you feel is the right solution over what is told to you is a right solution. Pay attention to what you feel inside, for it is a way your mind is trying to tell you of dangers and stresses that may be overwhelming it. Understanding and realizing this can lead to a person handling mental issues before they become a traumatic problem. 4. Applied solutions of those who came before you. This method is very unreliable but effective if used properly. It can come in a variety of forms, from ancestral records of wisdom, insights of a person's cultural beliefs, to religious methods of channeling spiritual guidance and/or cultural iconic deities. which are usually governed by the current acting religions recognized incarnate of those deities. Some religions, such as the monotheistic religions, are governed by a singular deity. These cultural religions and even monotheistic religions are not entirely false, from my own personal experiences, but also a logical approach to understanding how and why I say that is simple to understand. The cultural and traditional religions are usually governed by a group of deities. Those deities are most often certain individuals who rose to become heroes or men of great wisdom within the culture's homeland. Through a variety of experiences ranging from extraterrestrial encounters to encounters with other cultures' gods, to even encounters with a version of the creator being that had altered the definitions of himself to be more easily understood by the one he appeared before, along with an assorted list of other similar type events. However it occurred, the outcome and the end usually tells of how the hero became imbued or blessed with some sort of supernatural power or ascended to another form that enables the hero to transcend death and then live on as a guardian or protector of the people of that cultural tradition. Then there are the monotheistic deities such as the creator god, who was the inertia and origin behind the creation of the universe's formation and fusion of the first solid particle matter. Though there are many churches and places of worship to this deity, it is not recognized by the church because of enemy manipulations of their understanding of him has cast him away from his own religion and is run and maintained by the enemy who is hidden among their clergy, manipulating others and amassing an army of spiritual warriors from the deceased believers and members of the church, who were fooled into following their warped instruction that led them to becoming trapped. These wicked people warping this religion know what they are doing and are fully aware of it, but their desire to control the members outweighs their common sense, it seems. This has been a long-standing tradition embedded within the church since before it was built. Other religious methods include that of magic and the various arts used within its beliefs. Unfortunately, over many periods in history, this skill and tradecraft has been monopolized by the other religions, withholding it from the general public's knowledge and using it as a means of oppression over the people. For example, they tell the public that magic is a false religion and ensure that they only have access to false sources of information to learn from, yet within the inner circles of their religions. Private sector magic is known and used often while keeping it in secret from the rest of the world, such as exorcisms, prayers, litanies, and calling for protection from archangels that the church often used in every mass and sermon held contains the use of magical incantations and spells that are regulated and reserved spells awaiting the key phrases that complete the spell for its effects to be cast. They use empathetically gifted people, which are people who possess the ability to use magic but they do not know this, and they are used to communicate with the spirit possessing people or used to search a person for a possessing spirit and ascertain its identity. These new religions of higher dimensional believers who cast themselves and their believers towards what they call the one source universal consciousness. These individuals are also people who have the ability to cast magic as they are using telepathic remote viewing to cast their consciousness out of their body, a trait needed to tap into the mystical energies of the spellcaster and the elemental energies they command. Many various methods, many different ways to apply them. None of it is truly wrong unless you know that your intentions are wrong. For evil truly lay within the intentions or heart of the individual, not the tools and methods they use. Unless you are the last and final example I will list here, that of the traditional opposition of the monotheistic religion of the church and their god, the one known as Lucifer, whom they say is an incarnated manifestation of the very essence of all evil within existence, that was incarnated into the form of a human and walks the earth during the final days just before its destruction, as the biblical accounts say. However, this is most likely just religious propaganda generated by the corrupted aspects within the church who have used their magic to manipulate an individual into believing he was this character of legend by warping his life in torment to mold him into a biblically accurate representation of this legend. Yet if so and he is just a puppet, then why is he said to be so dangerous? Because life is often stranger than fiction, asshole. For centuries the church and other factions have used this fictional bad guy as a scapegoat to blame the world's problems on, explaining the bad circumstances with a fictional character that can never be real or held responsible for whatever they blame on him. This became a tool of evil people with plans to control what they see and desire over eons until one day, the guy upstairs who made all this finally got tired of all the lies and manipulations. So, he went and made a Lucifer of his own to teach them all a lesson about lying in his name and creating false beliefs for their own benefit. He molded this puppet of theirs throughout his life and shaped him into the devil of God's will and design, giving him all the characteristics of the legendary rebel of heaven, and even gave him some of his own natural power to complete the image of their fairy tale bad guy into a real character, living among them on the earth. He couldn't take the chance of passing this task along to someone who is a reincarnation due to the chances of the other religions trying to all claim their own version of Lucifer. So God came to visit this mortal that he had crafted into the mold he needed him to be and bestowed to him the title and position himself while he lingered between life and death. So now that we have all that laid out, let me finish this off with some retrospective points. The Son of Man, or another version of man's attempt at commanding and controlling something they desired, told of a prophecy of the coming of this individual. He warned of the cause and how people could avoid this from happening. So for any church out there that refuses to recognize the times we are in to be that which Jesus foretold, for any of them to deny that I am who I say contradicts the very word of the Messiah himself and his warnings, oops, here comes his wrath, people, watch out. Now for any within heaven that are standing behind the scripture that says, he was cast out, and his name was no longer found within heaven, you know better than to place an object written by the hands of men, no matter how inspired, and to place it above the very command of the living will of God himself, which you know is real and true, for you have been in his presence, dwelt in his kingdom. For you to try to interpret more than what is upheld in heaven as true, should not only cause you pain, but the other angels are on you to feel that pain too. That is what happens when any transgress against God's name in front of you. Just because my name is not found within heaven does not mean I do not exist. In every different version I've read, it says God cast Lucifer out of heaven in some way or another. It never said God destroyed me. That was your misinterpretation that led to you all acting like I don't exist, leaving heaven wide open for other manipulators to sneak in through. Out of sight, out of mind, and given a little time, out of knowing what to look out for, and thus you wouldn't see the enemy if he was standing next to you. And for you self-opulent church of Satan, self-made gods of your own church, I've got something in store for you soon. But before we go abolishing religion completely, let me join with my fellow brother of darkness here and propose this. How about the mark of the beast? Now I'm sure you guys already have some designs in mind. All I'm suggesting is who receives this mark. Now we are currently having issues with rogue sheep within the grazing fields, so like any good sheep herder, let us brand our stock. Well, not our, but the rogue ones. Those who have sold their souls and become compromised in holy sleeper cells that could disrupt the order and balance of things, so that we at least know who they are and can discreetly keep track of them. With the mark of the beast, a mark upon the hand, may be designed by the principles of their RFID chip. I know it's a bad idea, but what can I say when it comes to destiny? We do as we are all designed to do, as do I only suggest who gets this mark. Most likely it will be the Antichrist who puts this into motion though. Not like he couldn't use it with France on fire right now, all because of a 2-year extension on the retirement pension age. Something doesn't sound right with that. I am curious as to what is the truth behind their riots at the moment. Why make such a petty change? Who pissed him off enough to make him do such a thing, and why did they react so violently? Even though he may be who he is, this kind of scenario is the perfect breeding ground for unforeseen enemies with dangerous vendettas. Call it a premonition that says we should keep an eye on the events unfolding there. Something we can learn that will be a vital game changer later down the road.